thank you for coming, and thank you for TEDx and Niam Poly for your invitation. I'm going to be a little different from the earlier speaker because I'm an academic. So I'm going to try to be almost as lively, but I'm pretty sure that I won't. So I want to talk about the central intersection between love and likes today. And I'm going to start with a story that is a bit negative about what you guys will now know as limerence. But I will transition to a happier part of the story, don't worry. Okay? So let's start with love. Okay. So I'm going to start with what I would call a social ideology of love. I think one of the oldest accounts of love comes from Plato's Republic 2,400 years ago. And in it, hear me out, Aristophanes tells a story. Aristophanes is a character in Plato's Republic, that original human beings were two halves that we now know as human beings combined into one. So these beings had 8 limbs, 4 hands, 4 legs, 4 eyes, 4 ears, and they were very powerful. And they were very arrogant, and they tried to climb Mount Olympus. So the allegory of Eros, or the story of love that Aristophanes says in a dinner party that Socrates hosts, he says, well, this is the reason why Zeus breaks original human beings in half. And so we, who are post-dissected human beings, are no longer complete. And this is why we spend the rest of our lives chasing after our other half. That is to say, we are incomplete before we find our other half, but complete when we do find our other half. Now, actually, this is not Plato's story about love. Aristophanes is a side character, but in this tale, he becomes the main character. Why? Because this story of love is viscerally true. And by that, I mean it is a felt, psychologically experienced account of love. And of course, those of you who have experienced it will know that there is something missing about this account. Here are 3 features of this account of love. Though popular, though viscerally felt, doesn't quite sound right. First, there is only one soulmate. Well, that's a very dangerous portfolio. It's a portfolio of one. Second, that soulmate is perfect. Now, that's also a very dangerous portfolio, which means that you can spend a lifetime chasing after perfection. That, of course, third, once you can spend a lifetime chasing after perfection, who cares about maintenance? Again, for those of you who've ever been in a relationship, you will realize that this is a recipe for disaster. Now, this is the first half of today's theme, love. Let me move on to likes, and then I'm going to combine the two. Now, likes is easy. You're all familiar with this. We live very much in a world of likes. Likes is the very nature of the market economy, because what the market economy does is it turns a need into a like. And nowhere is this more obvious than in the social media industry, where we are constantly asked to like, to do a double check, to do a hearts, to do a thumbs up. And in fact, what we're doing is we are creating an algorithm for ourselves so that the more we like, as you well know, the more the system, the algorithm, realizes what we like. So it spits back more of what we will like or what we are likely to like. Now then, let's talk about the intersection of love as a social ideology that I called it before. Now, just to be clear, it's a social ideology because it's not fact. It's something that we believe in. It's a psychologically felt through that there's only one person, that person must be perfect, and the chase is all, right? So that's why I called it a social ideology. Now, what happens when this intersects with lights? Limerence happens. And I think most of you in this generation will know this term because it is a very real phenomenon at the intersection of the social ideology on the one hand and likes on the other. When I say likes, I mean the world of likes generated by social media. Now, limerence actually is a phenomenon that was described by a psychologist in the 1970s, Dorothy Tenoff. And here's how she defines limerence. It is an involuntary state of intense, obsessive infatuation characterized by intrusive thoughts, idealization of the limerent object, and a desperate, often unreciprocated longing for emotional reciprocation by the limerent subject. It's a painful experience, otherwise known as an infatuation or a crush, but particularly painful because it is involuntary. Now, I want to suggest that there is something about the age of social media that makes limerence much more dangerous and powerful than it was before. We'll start with limerence as we know it today. Limerence starts by meeting someone in virtual space. You don't actually need to meet the person anymore. And of course, the idea of love as perfection means that might as well go look for perfection. And you're going to find that in a perfect silhouette, in a perfect jawline, a perfect face. And you can find it easily with today's celebrities and idols and influencers. In today's world, you can also like as much as you want 24/7. And it's freely available for you. If you want to wake up in the middle of the night to do that, you can. Now, actual meeting is probably unlikely. Sorry, I meant unlikely. So the myth of perfection can continue forever. Unlike meeting the person for real and realizing they have a big mole, right? And then perfection is smashed instantaneously. And there are many chances for what I call breadcrumb reciprocity. Can I get a like? And all it takes is for that one dopamine drop to be dripped into your bloodstream once an hour, and you become wonderful contributors to the creator reward scheme at TikTok. So limerence can generate an endless feedback loop, generating doom scrolling and brain fog. And I think this audience, most of you will know this quite well as a dangerous experience. Now, I want to highlight that actually what makes this worse is when you see the contrast with what limerence was before. Of course, limerence has existed for thousands of years. But what is particularly dangerous is comparing what we have today, what technology fuels, and what was not possible before. Let's do a quick run through. Well, first, as I implied, at least before in the 1970s, limerence required that you met the person in a coffee shop, in a library. At least there's a physical person, a warm body that you might have seen. Limerence can happen now with magic because this person doesn't even need to really exist. It can just be an AI figure. Second, perfection is probably equally abundant in the 1970s, but you didn't have access. You didn't have social media, you didn't have screen time, and you might not even have had television before the 1960s. I think we had TV. The first broadcast in Singapore was in the early 60s. But before that, you had no access. And of course, as I said, the myth of perfection can be easily shattered in real life because all you have to do is meet your idol. And then you can crash and burn and actually move on. There is less chance of breadcrumb reciprocity, and of course, limerence dissipates over time. So now you see, this is a very real phenomenon. It's dangerous, but I also don't want you to get depressed because I gave you the worst case scenario of what limerence can be. And it's the worst case scenario that I will turn away from in a little bit. But for now, I just want to say, remember that this is dangerous because it intersects with the social ideology of love. The idea that there's only one, the one is perfect, and you must chase forever. What happens when that's the case? Then when it's perfection, you are psychologically told that it's okay to keep chasing, right? So the dopamine loop, the feedback loop continues, and you think it's okay because, of course, I'm chasing after perfection. Why not? So therefore, I say love in times of likes creates an epidemic, potentially, of virtual limerence, not even real, parasocial, non-social, virtual limerence, where a generation of limerence subjects potentially miss out on the opportunity of putting themselves out there. Gen Z would say shooting your shot, getting out there, meeting real people, and having real interactions. And this might be missed. So I'm putting this in the starkest terms because this is the worst case scenario. All right, now let's turn to the happiest story. If there's a worst case scenario, obviously there's also a best case scenario. And I want to say that the only real problem of limerence times social media is a foundational premise, one that you can relax. And if you relax it, actually, the beginning of salvation happens. You just have to give up the assumption that it must be one. Life is multiple equilibria. It doesn't have to be one. So when you give up the assumption that there is one, there is a kind of freeing of the spirit that you can consider a portfolio of possibilities, a buffet table of possibilities. So the very problem that has generated the issue, social media, is also the redeeming quality of social media. Because at the minimum, if you're going to have one limerent object, why don't you feast on a whole range of limerent objects? Have two, have three, multiply that infinitely. And guess what? What's going to happen is you're not going to have to time out in the same way that limerent subjects in the 1970s had. They had timeout. They had out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, right? But what you have here is the diversification of your portfolio, the multiplication of your limerent fantasies. Chase every limerent hole down its logical rabbit hole. Explore all of them. But what's going to happen is you're going to distract yourself from the one, diffuse your attention from the one, and in that, you may find some freedom. So Aristophanes' assumption that there is only one, when you cleave the original being up into two, then obviously there's only one, your other half, right? If you just relax that and use social media to become its own antidote when you have a multiplicity of limerent objects, then obsession begins to dissipate, madness begins to fade. Technology, therefore, gives us access to the many. The solution here, by the way, can extend beyond limerence. All of us, if you've been on TikTok, will have your For You page. And unfortunately, for many of us, we follow very precisely, creating a very curated list of likes. But what I would suggest is like away. Like across platforms, like across possibilities, because the truth is, love in the era of likes isn't just about a particular person. It could be about many other possibilities. And you can like someone beyond, at least initially, it might be a face or a body or a silhouette, but you can like someone for their humor, for their interests, for their hobbies. In fact, take another step further beyond that. Well, romantic love isn't all there is. It isn't the summum bonum, the highest good, as Kant called it. Romantic love is just the tip of the iceberg. Because the truth of the matter is, the great beings that have been out there realized this, that love is dispassion for self and compassion for all. I'll repeat that. The great beings, the Buddhas and the Jesuses of the world understood that love is dispassion for one, compassion for all. Think about the obsession of Aristophanes' conception of love. It is obsession with one, dispassion for all. It's the complete opposite. So how do we get this idea that romantic love is the highest good, the summum bonum, the Latin for the highest good, when in fact, all romantic love does is it provides the tip of the iceberg of the infinite possibilities available. Aristophanes was right on one account, and that is, there is something beautiful, euphoric, and magical when you find your half. But the argument wasn't supposed to stop there. It was supposed to begin there. The Jesuses and the Buddhas of the world have always said that euphoria is possible. Stop not with one, but see the multiplicity beyond. So let me begin a slightly extended conclusion. I began with telling a story of the potential darkness of limerence in the day and age of lights, and I provided a possibility out of it. And I want to say that social media actually is as much the solution as it could be the problem. The fact of the matter is, the reason why humans are at the top of the food chain, we are not the strongest, we are not the fastest, we're not the biggest, but we are at the top of the food chain. Here's why I propose. A pack of dogs would run around 6 or 8 of them. A pack of wolves, about the same, 12. A pack of lions, 25. A herd of sheep, hundreds. American bison in the 19th century, thousands of them. They can move, coordinated. The human species lives in the millions. Let that sink in. It means that our capacity to communicate, to connect, to speak to one another is so powerful that we alone have the capacity to move in millions, actually billions. The largest countries on the earth move in billions. This says something about the power of communication. And what TikTok and the Instagram and the social media allows us to do is to communicate across millions in a way that no species can. This is very potent. It allows us to transcend the limitations of who we are. And so I put it to you that this is exactly what the social media generation can do. That we can love and start to look beyond our limerent objects and multiply our limerent objects. And when we see that, we'll realize that we'll take the next step of expansion. That we can love and like someone not just because it's romantic, it's because they're interesting, because they have a cute dog, because they have a sense of humor. And we can even stop loving people and go beyond that and love activities, hobbies. Maybe you like watching a piece of dough fast forwarded turn into a fluffy loaf of bread. That's fun too. And as you expand, you realize that there is a secret here, and that is the more you compress, the more you obsess, the more you are extremely particular about what you like, Aristophanes' conception of love, the more you are crushed and miserable. But the more that you expand, the more you open up, the more you move from specific infatuation to universal inclusion, the heart loosens up and it expands and it grows. Is it difficult? Well, not really. I like a quote by Sophia Loren, and I'll end with this, that everyone is beautiful when they smile. So at first, it may not be easy for you to like, and times two is sort of like, times three, and just like more. But when you see this, that there is something lovable in everyone, and indeed everything, and you move in that direction, in that aspiration, you'll see that everyone is beautiful when they smile, even if they have not so nice teeth or even a cleft lip. They are beautiful because they smile. And when we do that, we begin to see that a life of love in the era of lights can move in the direction of genuine love, love that is all-encompassing, all-reaching, and all-inclusive. Thank you.